Good morning to one and all, and welcome back to another session of daily learning and lockdown inspiration. Nice to have you all with us. I see logging on as we speak. So welcome. And thank you all for your greetings. I see your greetings are coming through, which is fantastic. I see a few people commenting on the wrong video. I think Bernice Krause, are you on Facebook? I saw your comment come through on the wrong video. So maybe just check that you're on the right video, Friday, 26th of June. Those of you who are logging on right now to Facebook and to YouTube, thank you for joining us. Good to see you all. Fantastic. Keep on putting your posts and your comments into the chat. It would be nice to greet you back in return. Okay, good to see everyone. Great. So I see people are already liking and sharing the video. So well done to all. Keep on liking and sharing the video. Okay, good. Let me welcome you all. Those of you that joined and have greeted me personally, I'd like to greet you back. Shirley Feldman, thank you very much. Anne Hack, Tracy Mindel, thank you. Arnold Orkin, Linda and Jaime Drew, Felicia Jenks, Bokatov, Sharon Diamond, thank you. David Ginsburg, Larry Cohen, Ruth Kaplan, thank you. Michael Stain, good morning. Robert Levy, Larry Cohen. Good. And on YouTube, we have Vega Sager, Shelley Smith, Donna Lovitz, Manfred Kalnick, Dennis Solomons, David Seif. David, you figured it out. I'm so happy to see. Good stuff. Well done. If you're just logging on now, please do greet us and let us know you're here. Ian Clemenson, Stephen Herr, Boker Tov. Sure, we'll dedicate the learning today to your mother, Esther Bat Moshe. Thank you. Just giving it a few more seconds to allow for people to log on. If you're on Facebook, just like the video, please, under the screen and share it so others can see what you're up to. And we're going to begin in 40 seconds time. So let's just give it a few moments. And we're going to get going with our discussion. Healy Lipworth, good morning, Boker Tov on Facebook. Wonderful. Great to have you. Bernice Krause, I think you're on the right chat now. Good morning. Thank you. Michael Stain, hi Larry. Okay, good. It's good that friends are learning with each other and engaging with each other. Okay, Norman, Boker Tov, thank you. Let's get going, guys. So yesterday, Salman Triga, Shalom Triga on YouTube. Thank you. We have over 30 participants and viewers here this morning. So welcome to one and all. If you're going to watch this later on, that's great. Let us know that you're watching it. Yesterday, and Brian Olwen. Thank you, Brian. Boker Tov. Yesterday, we spoke about not judging a book by its cover. We spoke about 3 areas of the world. We spoke about geographical space. Hi, Larry Smith, Boker Tov. Thanks for joining us. We spoke about 3 areas of the world yesterday. Geographical space. We spoke about time. And we spoke about creatures. We spoke about the Rebbe's view. It was his yard site yesterday. The Rebbe's view of not judging a book by its cover. Not judging people by their cover. Not judging time superficially. and not judging geographical space. The country in which we live in is extremely, extremely relevant and not a coincidence at all. And we elaborated on that point yesterday in honor of the Rebbe's Yahrzeit. Today, I want to take you on a journey through another one of the Rebbe's novelties that he introduced to the world. And this time we're going to focus on Torah. But not Torah in general, but specifically famous stories and characters of Torah. It's the same theme as not judging a book by its cover. But today's title was The Story Behind the Story. The story behind the story. It's so relevant to figure out what is the story behind the story. And to understand that, let's start with this morning. Let's start this morning with this week's Torah portion. Because this week's Torah portion is a classical example of the story behind the story. This week's Torah portion is a classical example of a story behind a story, which the Rebbe opens our eyes up to, which when you read the parasha on face value, when you read the storyline, the narrative, you get one indication and one direction. When you read the storyline with the Rebbe's input and the Rebbe's view of seeing the story behind the story, suddenly the entire parasha opens up and gives light to new realities and new insights. So we all know the story of Korach. It's this week's Torah portion of Korach's rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen. He was rebelling against them. Who appointed you and who made you a leader? And what is a leader? We all part of Shevet Levi. Maybe we should be the leaders. Maybe I should be the leader. And so Korach leads a rebellion with 250 of the greatest men. You have to understand, this wasn't just a rebel rouser who was shouting and yelling. He had the best and finest on his side. He had the greatest leaders of the Sanhedrin, of the court, of the Skenim, of the elders of the community at that time who were on Korach's side. They were on Korach's side, and they were supporting him in their rebellion, in his rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu. This wasn't just someone on the rooftops shouting away or blogging away on Facebook or sharing whatever nonsense he was thinking of. He managed to convince great leaders of society, of the community, to join him. And when great leaders join him, 250 greatest leaders, can you imagine 250 of the elders of the community? The elders of the community. If 250 men of our community, 250 men of our community, rabbis or lay leaders or professionals, whatever it may be, if 250 men of our community got up and signed a petition, what would we all say? Naturally, we would all say, well, if 250 of them have signed the petition, obviously they're right. Well, that wasn't the case in the days of Moshe. Let's just see who's sharing with us. Aline Yudolovitz, good morning on Facebook. Murad's Walker, Ronnie Kotkus, Redin Bradsgan, Stan, thank you for being here this morning. Wonderful to have everyone here. I think Larry Smithy is still online because your in-laws are here too. They should have nachas from you. We have the Bradsks on YouTube and Larry on Facebook. So it's good to have the entire mishpacha together learning, like Norman and Michael Stain, who are always together every morning on Facebook together. So that's how we create chavashaft and family and community. So well done for joining us this morning on either Facebook or YouTube. We're close to 35 viewers here right now. So shkoyach, and thank you to all for being here. So if 250 men of the community here today got up and signed the petition, Morning Simeon Angel, they signed the petition. And the petition spoke about corona lockdown, or it spoke about economics, or it spoke about going back to shul, or going back to school, whatever the case may be. If 250 of our great leaders of the community, rabbis, lay leaders, professionals, politicians, whatever it may be, sign a petition, what would our reaction be? Follow them. You got to follow them. Whoever doesn't follow them has got to be nuts, because they know they're the holy ones. They're the leaders. It wasn't the way it was in Moshe Rabbeinu's days. In Moshe Rabbeinu's days, Korach gathered together 250 of the best on a rebellion against Moshe, and they were all wrong. But the Rebbe takes us on a journey. And the Rebbe in his teachings, and this is the theme of today, the story behind the story, shares with us an important lesson to learn from Korach's journey. We have to understand that Torah is a lesson book. The word Torah, the Medrash writes, our rabbis teach us that the word Torah means a lesson, hora'ah, a moreh. A moreh or morah is a teacher. Torah is a lesson book. It's not a history book. Even though we know a lot of our facts of history from Tanakh, from the Torah and the Nevi'im and the prophets, but that's not the purpose of why it was written down, in order to study the history of the Jewish people. It's a fringe benefit, but it's not the purpose. According to the Medrash, the purpose and the Talmud, the purpose of our Torah is a lesson. It's a life lesson. It's a shiur that we're going through. It's a classroom. When we read through the stories of Torah, we get the knowledge and the lessons we're supposed to be learning. It's one of the reasons why not all the stories were recorded. I mentioned this a few weeks back. Abraham's story of Ur Kasdim being thrown into the furnace by Nimrod. Abraham's story about being thrown into the furnace by Nimrod is not recorded in the Torah. What does that show us? It shows us that not all the stories are recorded because Torah is not a history book. It's a lesson. It's life lessons. And if Torah is life lessons, then here comes the whopping question of this week's parasha. The parasha is called Korach. Korach, can you imagine? He's called Korach. He's the rebel rouser. He's the troublemaker. And we name an entire parasha. And remember, the parasha is a life lesson for us. It's a hora'ah. It's a lesson for us. We name the entire parasha on the name of Korach. What on earth? He's not an ideal guy to copy or to mimic or to follow or to look up to. He's a rebel rouser. What are we doing naming a parasha after him? In the book of lessons, in the book of Torah. And there many commentaries ask this question. And the Rebbe emphasizes this in his teachings. If Torah is a lesson, why on earth name the parasha after Korach? And the answer he gives is because we need to understand the story behind the story. Hi, Tamar Bloch on Facebook. We need to understand the story behind the story. And when we get the story behind the story, it opens our eyes up to a whole new reality. Korach wasn't fully wicked. Korach wasn't fully evil. The 250 men that he had with him, of the greatest of the community, the holiest and the righteous of the community, they were not wicked. They, in fact, had good intentions. Yes, they had good intentions. They were righteous. That's why we learn about this story. Because this wasn't just a story of wicked rebel rousers and troublemakers. These are stories of the righteous of the community who were on a mission. They were on a mission. And it's that mission that we need to appreciate and we need to understand. We need to understand what was going on in Korach's mind. What was going on in the 250 rebel rousers in their minds. Because there seems to be something relevant and applicable to each one of us. In the meantime, before I continue, I want to welcome one and all to our daily learning this morning and lockdown inspiration. We've got over 35 viewers here between Facebook and YouTube. So thank you for being with us. If you haven't yet greeted us and shared your greetings in the comments, please do. We'd love to know you're here and communicate with you directly. If you have any questions on this topic, feel free to share them. We can engage that way. So what does the Rebbe teach us here? Let's understand what Korach was asking for. Korach said the famous words, Kulam Kadoshim. And I actually spoke about this a few days back when we spoke about the hierarchy of society. We spoke about the importance of having hierarchy, and hierarchy is not a contradiction to equality. You may all remember that discussion that we had a few days back. But I want to take you on a different angle that the Rebbe shares with us. They complained, Kulam Kadoshim were all holy. You're not the only one, Moshe, who's a Levi. You're not the only one, Moshe, who was at the foot of Mount Sinai. We were all there. We're all Levim. We're all Levim. And we were all at Har Sinai. Stephen Herr asks, did Korach want to be the Kohen Gadol? He wanted everything. That's what he wanted. He wanted everything. Or he wanted to others to be appointed. Who told Aaron and Moshe to be appointed? Lionel Rubin, good morning. Thanks for joining us on YouTube. So, we're all holy. And friends, Korach meant it. We're all holy. We're all capable. We've all got the skills. We're all influencers in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our environment. And Korach's claim has a message for us. Korach's claim isn't just a rebel rouser, isn't just a rebellion. His point, in a way, makes sense. On the one hand, he was wrong because we need hierarchy and we need, a structure, as the word was that we used a couple of days back. We need structure on the one hand. On the other hand, he had value in his point. Why must we rely on our rabbis, Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron HaKohen? Why must we rely on lay people, lay leaders? We're all capable of accomplishing it. Now, many times, we seem to convince ourselves that we're not capable. We seem to convince ourselves that we don't have the skills. I can't really convince my cousin to come to shul with me because I don't really have the skills or the know-withal what to tell him. So therefore, I can't be the one to convince my cousin to come to shul with me. Or I can't be the one to tell my employee at work something about Judaism or Jewish observance. I'm not the right one for that because I don't have the tools with which to do it. Well, I'm not the right family to keep kosher in my home. It's too religious to keep kosher in my home. I didn't have that as an upbringing. It's not going to work. Let other people keep the kosher in their homes. Came along Korach and said, absolute nonsense. What do you mean you don't have the ability to convince your cousin to come to shul with you? Since when? If God put you into a circumstance, into a situation where you have a cousin and you can attract this cousin to come to shul with you, you can do it. Not only are you responsible to do it, but you can do it. What do you mean you can't tell your employee at work a good vart or something about Judaism and convince them to do more, learn more? If God put you into the same office, if you hired someone in your office, you have the responsibility and also the capability of inspiring this individual. What do you mean that you can't kasher your home and become kosher because it's too frum and too radical? Yes, you can. You're very capable. Because Korach taught us, Kulam Kadoshim. Everyone's able to do this. Everyone's able to be holy. Everyone's able to connect to God in that way. So that's the message that Korach gives us. Is Kulam Kadoshim, we're all holy. And that's the story behind the story. It's named Korach because Korach has a lesson for us. It's named Korach because not just because Korach's the opening verse of this week's parsha. That's coincidental. It's named Korach because Torah is a lesson book. And the lesson book for us is to learn from his actions. Maybe not to follow them through all the way. That's true. But to definitely learn this aspect of his complaint and realize how capable we are. So what we need to do, and this is what the Rebbe pushed for, following the insight into the story of Korach, he said, let's all reflect. Let's all think about our neighborhood, our families, our environment, and see what can we do. Let's not rely on other people. Let us all create a shir or a minyan when we're allowed to, or a good vart, or a good message. We can all do it. We're all capable. And the truth is, social media has shown us that today. Social media, on the one hand, social media is disturbing. It disturbs organizational life. When every single person blogs away or writes away or whatever comes to mind, I share with the public. On the one hand, it seems like, gosh, everyone's got a say. Who gave everyone a right to have an opinion? Once upon a time, you had to find the right forum, the right platform to have an opinion. Today, everyone can have an opinion. So some people mock it and laugh at it. On the other hand, there's great advantage to that. Everyone is a player. Everyone can make an influence. Everyone can have influence. Everyone can make a difference. Just post something or create a social media movement. Create a social media movement. and you can make a difference. Now, I'm going to pause here for a moment. And welcome one and all. Thanks for joining us. What I want to do is show you, we actually discussed this a number of weeks back. This story behind the story is a key theme in many different Torah stories and many different Torah episodes. Another example of that would be the spies. Parashat Shlach Lecha Anashim. It's a disaster. Last week's parasha. It's a disaster of a parasha. Tragic. The Meraglim, the spies, go into the land of Israel and report back negatively. They report back negatively. And many questions are asked. But why is the parasha named after the Meraglim, after the spies? Weren't they wrong or evil and held us back in the desert for 40 years because of their mistake and their sin? The Rebbe opens our eyes up and he says you got to see the story behind the story. They were holy people, as we spoke about last week. They were holy people. What was their agenda? Let's figure out what their agenda was. If we figure out what their agenda was, we'll get a deeper insight into their behavior. And suddenly, when you dig a little deeper and you read the books and you read the Sforim, you actually realize they had a holy motivation. Their motivation was because they wanted to remain holy and spiritual. They wanted to remain holy and spiritual. And the way they were going to do that was being in the desert. They didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael, into Israel. So were they wicked? Their outcome was wicked. Their behavior turned out to be wicked. But they themselves were holy. And therefore the story behind the story shows us that there's a message there for us. To be like the spies. The spies want to remain connected to God all the time. The spies don't want to go to work. They don't want to deal with the material and the physical. The spies want to cleave to God, study more, learn more, daven more. If the spies had social media, they would have definitely joined us at 10:30 in the morning on our social media get-togethers on YouTube and Facebook. Because the spies wanted to learn. That's all they wanted to do. Leave us in the desert, we'd be fine. And that story behind the story teaches us a fantastic lesson. And that's why the parasha is called Shlach. Shlach Lecha Anashim. It talks about the Meraglim because the Meraglim had a holy endeavor. They had a holy goal that they wanted to accomplish. And there's another story that I think we can get some insight in to understand the story behind the story. And that's the episode of Yosef HaTzadik. And Yosef HaTzadik, with the brothers, has a very difficult time, we all know. And they don't get along with him, and eventually sell him down to Egypt. And there he's appointed as a viceroy. And for years and years, they're busy moving between. For many years, they eventually bring Yaakov Avinu down. At the end of the story, Yaakov comes down for 17 years, lives in Egypt. And after all those years, Yaakov is about to die, and the brothers are getting nervous. Because the brothers are realizing, oy vey, our father's about to die. This brother of ours is going to take revenge against us. There's no question. He owes us big time for what we have done to him. And so he is going to take revenge against us. And they tell him, we're scared. Now, the Rebbe gives us another beautiful insight into this discussion of Yosef. Yosef tells the brothers, why would I want to harm you? Why would I want to harm you? You think you're the ones that brought me down here? You think you're the ones that sold me down to Egypt? You think you sold me and I came here because of you? It's not that at all. Yosef says, in fact, God is the one that delivered me down to Egypt. Hashem brought me here, not you. Obviously, God chose a conduit, a pathway In physical terms, God needed the teva, the nature of the world, to facilitate the descent of Yosef all the way down to Egypt. So the brothers were appointed. And the brothers were the ones who sold him down to Egypt. And that's not excusable. There's no excuse for their behavior. But one thing Yosef does is, don't think I'm here because you sold me down to Egypt. Don't think so. I'm here because God wanted me to be here. And that's another insight, a third insight into the story behind the story. Because we think that Yosef's brothers sold him. He ended up Nebuch, Rachmanis. He ended up going down to Egypt, sold down, and it was his luck. That's how we perceive it. It was his luck that he managed to somehow be appointed as a viceroy because of the dreams that he had, and he was appointed as a leader. The Torah teaches us, and the Rebbe highlights this point in his talks, is that Yad Hashem, there's the hand of God that is coordinating everything. And even if the brothers sold him, it wasn't them that brought him down to Egypt. God wanted him in Egypt. That's why he was in Egypt. Nothing happens away from God's control. Even when someone does bad to us, it's not because they did bad, therefore it happened. It's because God chose of it to happen. He just needed a conduit for it. He needed someone to deliver it to our doorstep, like the brothers of Yosef. And this less message teaches us to never see things as circumstance. Never see things as it just happened. God's playing a bigger role here. God's maneuvering pieces of the puzzle in such a way. You know, the Hebrew word for occurrence or coincidence is mikre. That's the Hebrew word today. Mikre is a combination of 4 letters. If you mix up the 4 letters of mikre, you're actually going to get rak me Hashem. That a coincidence or occurrence really only happens directly from Hashem. Rak me Hashem. There's no such thing as a coincidence that happens. And so that's the third aspect I wanted to share with you of seeing the story behind the story. We went through 3 stories. Number 1, we went through this week's parasha, Korach, trying to understand the behavior of Korach and why the parasha is named Korach. And the Rebbe's insight that Korach's rebellion was actually holy. He had a holy goal he wanted to accomplish. Kulam Kadoshim were all holy. The second story we touched upon was the spies, the Meraglim of last week's parasha. The spies. And are the spies all negative? Not necessarily. They're called Anoshim Kasherim. They're holy. And here the Rebbe teaches us about the holy motivation, the holy inspiration that the spies had they wanted to remain in the desert, because that's where they can cleave to God in the best possible way, not going into Israel. And finally, the story of Yosef HaTzadik, and there's many other stories. But finally, the story of Yosef HaTzadik, how he ended up in Egypt, not because of the hand of Hashem. Not because of the hand of Hashem, or the hand of the brothers, but rather because of the hand of Hashem. Hashem is the one who delivered Yosef to Egypt because he needed to become the viceroy in order to feed the brothers, in order to bring Yaakov down to Egypt. All that needed to be facilitated by Yosef, and that's why Yosef was sold down to Egypt. Hi, Robert Levy and Maureen. Oh, you like that idea of the mikre? Okay, I'm happy. The mikre and the rak me Hashem. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to share with us on what we've spoken about today, please put them and post them in the comments. In the meantime, the message of today is look at the story behind the story. Always dig a little bit deeper. When you dig a little bit deeper, you get a revelation, insight, almost prophecy into the stories of the Torah that enlighten us and inspire us. Yes, the narrative is important. It's critical to know the storyline, to know the facts. Hi, Maureen, thank you for that comment. To know the facts is critical. To know the narrative is critical. But in addition to that, let's figure out the story behind the story, because then that will give us the inspiration and the motivation from these stories to be able to act better and behave better, as is the wording Torah, which means life lessons and practical tips of advice that a story of the Torah give us. So thank you one and all for joining us here We're going to be back on social media while using Zoom in the afternoon, 4:10. We have the Cohen brothers. Yudi Cohen and his brothers are going to be joining us with some musical inspiration for pre-Kabbalat Shabbat, as well as Rabbi Shlomo Riskin, the chief rabbi of Efrat, Israel. He's going to be delivering some words of Torah and inspiration for all of us. So if you'd like to join us, it's 4:10 on Zoom this afternoon. And we have a fantastic program lined up next week. So we'll be back here Sunday morning. You can join us there, 10:30 on Facebook and YouTube. I wish you all a wonderful day ahead. Take care, keep safe, keep sane, and keep spiritual. And a wonderful Shabbos to you all.